Thank you for tuning in to the Practical Preservation Podcast. Please take a moment to visit our website, practicalpreservationservices.com, for additional information and tips to help you restore your historical home. If you've not done so, please subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, or SoundCloud, and also like us on Facebook. Welcome to the Practical Preservation Podcast, hosted by Danielle and Jonathan Kepperling. Kepperling Preservation Services is a family-owned business based in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, dedicated to the preservation of our built architectural history for today's use as well as future generations. Our weekly podcast provides you with expert advice specific to the unique needs of renovating a historic home, educating by sharing our From the Trenches preservation knowledge and our guests' expertise, balancing modern needs while maintaining the historical significance, character, and beauty of your period home.
On this episode of the Practical Preservation Podcast, we have Taylor Voltz with me from Preservation Destination. I keep wanting to flip those. I don't know why. It's my own brain. Yeah. So I wanted to make sure I got it right. Not that it would be the first time I got something wrong. Thank you for joining me today.
Of course, no problem. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so this is the first time I've had another podcaster on, so I'm kind of excited. So tell me about your background.
I grew up in Georgia, in Kennesaw, which is about 20 miles north of Atlanta. And I went to college at Kennesaw State University, which at the time was just a relatively medium-sized commuter school. And now it's like the third largest university in the state of Georgia. So it's grown a little bit, but I graduated from there with a Bachelor of Art in American History with a certificate in Public History. And that Public History certificate is kind of what got me interested in preservation, because I knew I had always really liked history, but I wasn't sure what to do with it.
Right.
It was kind of going into it like, well, everybody just becomes a teacher. It's like, well, I don't want to be a teacher. Yeah. So the public history kind of showed me the other things that you could do with a history degree, besides being a teacher or something like that. And it just it got me interested in preservation. And I started looking at graduate programs. And about a year and a half later, I was accepted to the Tulane graduate program for historic preservation. Okay. So it's a master's of preservation studies. And I moved to New Orleans, and I went through that degree and had a great time. The program's about 3 semesters long. It's not a super long program, but it is very comprehensive. Mm-hmm. And after I finished that, this is something that I would bring up a lot on my own podcast when talking to other people. I don't know what happened, but I finished my degree and I just couldn't, I hate to say couldn't find a job, but that's basically what happens.
Right.
I finished up around 2010, which is when there was quite a bit of cutbacks on government programs and things like that. And so there were a lot of people, not only graduates, but other people that had lost their jobs that were flooding the field, I guess. And I didn't want to leave New Orleans. So that was the other thing too. I didn't want to look for employment in another place. Of course, now looking back on it, it's like I probably should have, but yeah. Well, your mid-20s, it's yeah. So
those decisions make your life go the way it goes, though.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, everything has worked out eventually. But yeah, it was quite a few years of struggling to figure out where I fit in and what I wanted to do, even after all of that education, and that kind of stuff. And so I after some years went by, I was like, what can I do to connect me to stay connected to the preservation field? And then that's when I came up with the podcast, the Preservation Destination Podcast. and so that was a way for me to make connections in the field with other people, not just locally, but all over the country. And, just a way to stay up to date, because this field, just like lots of other ones, there's new things happening all the time, and you have to learn all the new stuff and keep up with everything. So that was a way for me to stay sort of connected with the field. And then now, a few years later after that, I have moved to Mobile, and I live here with my husband, and he got a job here. And so that's how we moved here from New Orleans. And last July 2021, I got a job as the director of the Historic Mobile Preservation Society. So I'm the director of the nonprofit, and I also manage the Historic House, which is the Oakleigh House here, basically right in the middle of the Midtown area of Mobile. So now I'm finally getting to do what I went to school for.
Yes, yes.
And what I've always wanted to do.
Yes, yes. Yesterday I was having a conversation. So I guess I am officially the executive director at the Lancaster County Preservation, the Historic Preservation Trust, but I'm part-time. So I have to stop myself from saying I'm part-time executive director. But yesterday I was talking to one of the board members, and we were just talking about career paths. And I said, doing the podcast, I said, there are so many people that I realize are, coming to it as it's not like a direct path out of high school. It's not something that people really think to go into. And I thought that was interesting when you were talking about the public history kind of exposed you to it, because it's not really something that I think that most people, 18, 19 are thinking, oh, I want to be a preservationist.
Yeah, exactly. And I got that with some of mine too, interviewing people. It's like some people would come from just general architecture or interior design, or just completely different
right.
Law backgrounds, so it's so interesting to hear those stories. I just think that's a lot of fun to see how people get to the point where they're like, okay, I'm going to invest in being a preservationist and see where that takes me.
Yes. Yeah. That's the other thing though, that I enjoyed about doing our podcast, is meeting a lot of different people and, different backgrounds and different stories, but all, we're all pretty much in agreement, with, how preservation, at least wise. So,
yeah.
So I think you kind of explained, but what drew you into preservation when you were kind of deciding what you wanted to do?
So the public history certificate that I took as an undergrad had several different types of classes that were part of it. And there was one that was preservation. There was one that was archaeology. There was one that was just called like public history. Mm-hmm. We had a museum studies type class. And so I kind of got to try a little bit of each thing to kind of see what I was more interested in. And I really liked the archaeology class. I think that's super cool. Mm-hmm. But I kind of also discovered that it was way more math and science than I wanted to do. So I was like, maybe that's not the best option. Also, I was like 3/4 of the way through with my regular history degree at that point too. So
you're not going backwards.
Right. I was like, no, this is already taking too long. Yeah. I just, in taking those classes, it just became, okay, and when one of them was sort of an architecture based class too, because that sort of goes with it. And I just had always really liked old houses, different styles of architecture. And then it just sort of came into this thing like, well, you can have a job and work in old houses and do these types of things that you enjoy, and make it a career.
Right.
And I was like, well, that's it. I'll do it. And I knew coming into it that it wasn't going to be one of those things that's like, I'm not an engineer. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not going to be rolling in the dough, but I'm doing what I like to do. And that was, I guess that's the what do they call it? The millennial I don't know, the millennial thing that we were, my age was always like, go to college and then do what you want to do and you'll never work a day in your life. That's what they told all of us when we were growing up. And, I think I finally gotten to that point, maybe.
Some days aren't fun though.
Right. I mean, yes.
And I don't think they told you that.
Yeah. It's still work, but like, but I get to come every day. I get to come and I sit in this really, really beautiful old house.
Right.
And, and I get to talk to people about it. And I get to talk to people about history and do research. And, so I am doing what I want to do every day. It's just, ideally everybody would be, I mean, that's a whole nother conversation. I guess compensation's a whole nother monster, but
Sarah, I can't think of what Sarah Marson
Mm-hmm.
She was on the podcast maybe several months ago, and she went into her push for more transparent compensation. I think that's a great cause, because
yes,
people do tend to get, put into, if you agree to a lower amount, then as you move up, it's going to stay lower. So,
mm-hmm.
if you don't know what the going rate is. So, and it is hard. Nonprofits are hard just because they don't have, a lot of money, but
mm-hmm.
there has to be a way to balance that out. I think so. Yeah. Because if you want good people, you're going to probably have to pay for it.
Yeah, exactly.
So tell me about your podcast, Preservation Destination.
So I started in, I want to say it was 2018. And like I said before, it was just a way to stay connected with the preservation community, even though I wasn't able to, I wasn't working in the field. I was doing a lot of volunteer work, and I was doing a lot of, my own furthering education. I was taking some courses on grant writing, which was something that I had kind of done a little bit of in grad school, but, unless you're doing it consistently, it just wasn't something that I was really familiar with. So I was doing stuff like that, volunteering some of my friends, just helping them out with different projects. And, I just kind of, podcasts were, I guess they were sort of already up and around by then, but I was just finding out about them, I guess.
Yeah. I don't think they were as popular as they are now.
Yeah. And so I was like, well, that's a pretty good way that I could do some preservation stuff and be involved, and at sort of a minimal expense to myself, which was also pretty nice. And so I just was like, and it was easy because I already had tons of friends, and I was like, I just could ask the people that I knew that were there in New Orleans with me, and that sort of got me started. Mm-hmm. And then from there, I started reaching out in some professional groups and just saying, hey, I've got this podcast. You want to come on, talk about what you're doing, your background, your education. And it just kind of went from there. And I tried to kind of get people that were in different types of positions as well, not just directors of nonprofits, or not just, contractors or things like that. Like, I tried to get a wide range of people with a wide range of backgrounds, practical preservation, like materials, but also the people that do the paperwork type stuff, like, nominations and things like that. So I tried to get a wide range.
Yeah. I feel like I do that too. Just because I don't come from my academic background is not preservation. I've worked in preservation for over 20 years, but my academic background is not preservation. So I don't necessarily, like, I know sometimes I'll see, like, in the like group, like the Facebook groups for professionals, like the discussions typically go to like academia, and like, how can we make this, this nomination or this form, work better? And that's not the world I come from,
right.
And so, but I do have some of those people on, but it is, I think having a wide variety and bringing that out to the world and to the audience is important, because it gives people a whole range of what preservation is, because preservation isn't just one thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I joke that I've never chained myself to a building, and I think my husband thinks I'm serious, so he told me he wouldn't bail me out. So so do you when does your podcast come out? Like when like, is it weekly or is it?
So right now it's on a bit of a hiatus.
Okay.
Because just with COVID stuff and then moving to a new state and starting a new job, I had to take a little bit of a break. The previous episodes are still up, but it was bi-weekly. I was doing it like twice a month. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping to be able to get started with it again now that everything's calmed down a little bit. And now that I've built relationships here and a community here in Mobile, I've expanded and I can, because I feel like, a lot of the stuff that was New Orleans focused, just because it just happened to be that way. But so I'm hoping that, now that I'm here, I have some more connections. I can, and I also looked at starting one for the Preservation Society that I work for as well. So that's another thing that's sort of in the process, I guess you could say.
I've talked to the board at the trust about not necessarily a podcast, but like a video interview. I said very similar to my podcast, but Lancaster County focused and once a month, because I'm not doing it more than that.
Right.
But I think it's just a great education tool, and people consume things in different ways. And so it's good to give people different ways to consume. So I think that's a great idea. And I'm sure that nobody else has tried that there. So you're on like new ground.
It is kind of, down here. There's a couple other organizations here in town that are sort of preservation based. There's Restore Mobile, and then of course there's the city, the Historic Development Commission, which is the city organization. But nobody's doing any podcast or digital video too much right now. So that is that's on my list. I have a very long list.
I understand.
As I'm sure you can imagine.
But I applaud your effort. So tell me about the trends and challenges that you see in preservation.
So the biggest thing for me, and one of the things that I was trying to educate people with the podcast and just talking to people in general is, I just feel like there's still so many misconceptions about what preservation is and what we do. And I'm sure you've seen some of the recent articles that have been published about, I can't even remember the most recent one.
The stop fetishizing
old houses.
Old houses. Yeah.
And there's things like that. And then it's like how old neighborhoods aren't good for the city, and I don't know, different things like that, and why historic districts are bad. And I just keep seeing that. And it just feels like that's something that we're having this trouble overcoming. And I don't know if it's I guess it's just because people just don't really know,
I think some of it is. I think some of it is definitely that people don't know. And I think that some of it is preservation's not great at marketing.
Right.
so like they kind of got labeled as like I hear a lot what is it, the hysterical board or whatever people say that. Yeah. And I'm like, well, really, it's not that bad if you like stay within the rules. Like, I've never had an application denied, but if I went in with something crazy, they would deny me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I make it a point, here when I'm doing tours at Oakleigh, of course our tours are different depending on who's doing the tour. But since I have the architectural history and preservation background, I talk a lot about the historic districts here and that sort of thing. And so in my own little way, any given day when I'm giving a tour, I'm trying to dispel some of that negative information, even if it's just to the two people that I'm talking to. I'm like, tell them about the districts and then why they're important and how it's not just regulating your paint color and, your roof or things like that people think it is. And so,
I was just going to say there was a really funny scene in the last season of American Horror Story. I don't know if you watch it, but they were in Provincetown in Massachusetts, and they were in front of the historic board, and they were like, they came in with one white, and then there was another white that was the approved white. They're like, can we use this white? They were like, oh no. And I thought it was just a funny representation of like what people think it is, because the two whites, you couldn't tell the difference, but the one was totally unacceptable. It just made me giggle. And I've looked a couple times online to see if I could find the clip, but I guess nobody else thought it was as funny as I did. So. It makes you laugh, but then at the same time, it's like that people really think that's what we're doing. That we're just out here being nitpicky, and it's not. It's way more in depth than that kind of stuff. And there's
nuances. So to me that's always been the biggest issue, and that's one of the biggest things that I focus on. But of course, like, you mentioned Sarah, I love all the work that Sarah's doing. She's doing amazing things.
She is.
With the salary transparency and just looking at preservation from different perspectives. It's not just about pretty old houses. It's, it's community. It's the connections that people have with the old houses.
Right.
And I'm so excited I get to meet her finally in person at the end of April at the Dismantle Preservation Conference. Yeah. And it's so weird because we've been talking for years.
Right.
And it's like, how have I not actually met you in person yet?
COVID.
So, right. Well, yes, that's part of it. But yeah, I'm really excited about that too. And to get some different perspectives. And, especially here, it's, you have to be, I don't know. I'm trying to think of the right way to put it. I don't want to say people are kind of set in their ways, but they kind of are a little bit.
Yeah.
And so, one of the things when I started working here was, and I like to tell the story because I think it's funny, but, obviously I know your listeners can't see my face, but my hair is not a natural hair color. It has not been for quite a while. And when I went in for my interview here, I had pink hair. And I was at the very end, I said, obviously I have pink hair. And I understand that as the director, I'm the forward facing person of this organization. And I have no problem going back to a normal color. And, one of the board members was kind of like, well, I think that's kind of the energy we need around here.
That's fun.
And I was like, yes, thank you. Exactly.
Yeah.
So
I'm probably 10 years older than you. And I still will. Well, I've decided this last year when I had my birthday, I decided that I wasn't going to say anymore that I'm not as young as I look, because at some point people are going to think I'm delusional. But but I have this dress that I bought at Torrid that has flowers but skulls all over it.
Yeah.
That I wear in the summer.
Yeah.
And one day I was someplace and when I wear it, I'm like, oh, this is probably not what they think a preservationist would wear, but I don't, and but I'm gonna be me, and I'm gonna, bring whatever I am. I'm gonna be myself. And one day somebody looked at it and said, "Those aren't flowers." I said, "No, they're not."
I love it. I love it.
But I do think, and I like, I've a few times on the podcast, I've talked to people in your age range where, that I'm, like I'm kind of in between that, the super young energy, but then also the older people that are kind of like set in their ways and trying to figure out how to appeal to younger people.
Right.
And but then there's and I love that there's more women that I'm talking to in that age range and being involved in preservation. There have been multiple multiple times in my career that I'm the only woman, in the room or present for discussions, especially coming from construction as a construction background.
Yeah.
So that's something that's really heartening to me. And I enjoy that. So I love your hair color, and I would say keep it too.
Yeah.
So there's a woman though that's probably I also interviewed her for the podcast, that she worked here for the State Office of Historic Preservation. Now she's on her own as a consultant, and she's probably about 10 years older than I am. And she talks about, when she started working at the State Office of Historic Preservation, she was the only woman. And so because it was in the early 90s. And so they gave her all the nominations to work on. So she got really good at that. And that's what she's out consulting doing now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, sure, yeah. What they didn't want to do, became your strength. So
yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so I appreciate you putting some energy and new life into your position too.
I'm trying.
Yeah.
I'm working on it.
Little by little, working
yeah.
Words is a struggle sometimes. I know some of my board members listen too, so they'll probably giggle. So where can or was there any, before we wrap up, was there anything else that you wanted to share before we wrap up?
No, I mean, I just want to encourage people, like if you're interested in preservation, definitely there's so many different options that you can go with. You can go to school like some of us did. You can get a regular degree. You can, but I also always like to point people out to trades programs too, because I also really enjoy doing stuff, doing stuff with my hands. Not that it's not my specialty, but I have done window restorations. I love doing tombstones and crypts and cemetery things like that. I love doing those types of things, working with the plaster. And so, just kind of see what's out there and find the thing that you enjoy, and then go for it. Yeah. That's what I say. So we could always use more people in the field, and don't definitely feel like, and the other thing too is that people in preservation are probably some of the nicest people that I have dealt with, and I've had a lot of different types of jobs throughout my life, and there's never one of those things. I'm sorry, hold on, I'm getting a call. Let me just
I can't hear it, so that's good.
Yeah, it just popped up on the screen.
Okay.
And so yeah, preservationists are some of the nicest people I've ever met, and everybody's always willing to share their information and their connections, and which I also absolutely love, especially now as the director of this organization and also managing a house museum, is a little bit more than I've done in the past. And so I've had to reach out to other people that have, manage house museums and be like, how have you guys been doing this? Like, what do you do for this and this, that, and the other? And people are so willing to be like, give you everything they know and send it to you. And I just love that. I agree.
I agree. It's not like it's a big secret and that's proprietary or,
right.
Yeah.
No, I love that.
I really agree. I agree with you on that. So how can our listeners listen to the preservation destination?
So the podcast is available on my website, which is just preservationdestination.com. It's really easy. You can listen to it there. It's also on Apple Podcasts and Google Play as well.
Okay, very good. And then I'm assuming that then listeners can contact you through your preservation destination website if they were interested in.
Yes, there is a form that they can fill out and send it to me, and I will get it. They can also send me an email directly. It's taylor@preservationdestination.com.
Okay.
And then we also have an Instagram, which is just called Preservation Destination on Instagram.
Okay, very good. Well, and we'll make sure that we have the ways to contact you on our site, where our website or where our podcast is hosted, so that so that if somebody's listening, they didn't get a chance to write it down, they can find you there.
Sounds good.
Well, very good. Thank you so much for your time today.
Sure, no problem. Thank you. I really appreciate it. This is my first time being a guest, so it's pretty exciting.
Thanks for listening to the Practical Preservation Podcast. The resources discussed during this episode are on our website at practicalpreservationservices.com/podcast. If you received value from this episode and know someone else that will get value from it as well, please share it with them. Join us next week for another episode of the Practical Preservation Podcast. For more information on restoring your historic home, visit practicalpreservationservices.com.